So here on Stop the Walkouts, we're talking for the first time via Zoom with Jenna Bowden. She's super cool. We met, gosh, Jenna, how long did we meet? A few years ago when we were both experiencing very similar circumstances in our salons.
I think it was probably on Facebook. I had posted something about the depths of my despair. And then you came to the rescue with a lot of encouragement, and we got on a call together and it helped me get through it. So I just appreciate
it. I think that what you have to offer people that might be listening to this or reading this is what we all are searching for, and that this is not a singular episode. It's happening in all our salons, many salons, to really great leaders and great owners. And it's, we hear a lot that it's our fault, which I think that we've all learned things as we've grown and developed as owners, but it really, it's an epidemic in our industry. And I just wanted to let you talk about what you went through, how you grew, how you survived, where you're at now, and just give other people encouragement.
Absolutely. And it is our fault. It's always our fault, but we have to determine like what our level of responsibility was and what lessons there were to learn from it. Because I think it's easy. There's a lot of blame that goes out there in the industry. Like, I think that when I posted about my walkouts on Facebook, a lot of what people say is they immediately go to the offensive of like, well, it's always the owner's fault. Like, people, they don't quit good leaders, they quit bad leaders. And like, that's just not what you need to hear in that moment. And really, I've learned that it takes months of processing and sometimes therapy to even learn the lesson, down the line, because in the moment when you're going through it, it's so hard and rough. And, you can learn the wrong lesson. You can think it was me, I'm a bad person, nobody likes me. And that maybe just is not it. For me, it takes years. It took years of pondering to really figure out what are the three big lessons I had to learn from each of my 3 walkouts I've been through in the last 4 years. So
3 walkouts in 4 years, whole lot of ups and downs for you, whole lot of lessons. What can you draw from each of them, either that was different or even the same?
Oh gosh, I have a whole list of lessons, and each one is story so different. Do you want me to just kind of go through each one?
Yeah, we would love to hear that.
All right, well, buckle up and get some coffee, because here we go. When I first opened Crown Salon and Extension Studio 4 years ago, I was 25 years old, never had any leadership experience in my life. I had gone to beauty school in high school and pretty much immediately went right into booth rental and then suite rental. So I was by myself. I always wanted to have my own salon, but when the opportunity presented itself at 25 years old, I had major imposter syndrome. So that was one of the big lessons I had to learn was, I thought at 25, I'm hiring people older than me. Everyone I hired was older than me, which is crazy. And so I had a lot of imposter syndrome about that. And I felt like, you know what, I don't want to be the leader who has to tell people no. So I'm going to hire somebody else, like a manager, like a partner in this, who is older than me, that people will respect and listen to, who has more salon experience than me and is really good at telling people no, the yin to my yang. And when I thought it was a great idea at the time, but looking back, I was just trying to avoid responsibility. I was trying to put leadership on someone else because I wanted to be the visionary in the back, doing the numbers. and growing the salon and not actually the one leading the team. And it sounds silly to say that now, because I look back, I'm like, you can't open a salon and just decide you're not going to be a leader. Like, right, Alayne? Like,
yeah. Or, oh my gosh, I hear, when I hear you say this, I was physically incapable of saying no. So I would just say yes to everything because I didn't want anybody to be mad at me.
yeah.
And then as soon as I did say no, they were like, oh, no, that's not how this works. I get what I want all the time. What do you mean no?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And so keep going, because I think it's really interesting, because you were you were successful and you were talented.
Yeah.
But
And I thought that just meant I'd be able to right out and open a salon, no problem. And we would be busy and it would be great. And I had a vision and that, well, I'll keep going. So basically, I moved into this salon space. I was very blessed to find a space that already was furnished to be a salon. So I opened my salon with $5,000 credit card limit, and that was all I had. So I really had to get scrappy from the beginning, but I had 6 chairs. So my brain thought, I have 6 chairs. I better hire 6 people. Like, what in the heck was I thinking? Like, going.
And did you hire? Oh, no, go ahead and finish. And
yeah. So I was like, I'm going to hire 6 people right off the bat. So I got, myself. Actually, I was like, I think I'm going to hire like 5 more people, because I had myself, my manager, and then 5 new people. And I just wanted like butts and seats. I thought that was the key to a successful business. So I was hiring anyone with a pulse. Me and my manager would meet people at a coffee shop to do the interview. And I thought that was good enough. I didn't do background checks. I didn't check references. I didn't do technical interviews. I did nothing. I basically like wrote out some questions I thought would be good and went from there. And I made some very interesting hiring decisions. I think that was one of my biggest mistakes, is I just didn't have a vision. I didn't have values for my company. I didn't have a direction. And so I hired a lot of people that I knew, which is always tricky. And I think that's a common mistake a lot of, new salon owners make, is they're like, well, I have friends in the industry and, we don't like where we are right now. So we're just going to get together and open our own salon and it's going to be great. And that's what I did. And I learned the hard way that that's not how it works. So I did, I hired some good people, some kind people, people who I think would have done well, but they were overshadowed by the people who were just not nice. They weren't kind, downright mean sometimes. And I actually grew to be afraid of my staff. I was afraid of saying no. I was afraid of being there. I felt sometimes bullied in my own salon, and I would even, I had such terrible anxiety that I would cry every day on the drive to my own salon. And I would sit. Did you have that too?
I'm identifying with that. And I kind of forgot about it, but I had some of the same. I was bullied in my own salon and I was scared to go there. And I think I tried to hide from it and just kept myself so busy. But thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does happen.
It was just so much anxiety, crippling anxiety, and that I didn't know how to deal with. I wasn't in therapy or anything, 25 years old, no leadership experience. I'm just like, what did I get myself into? And I would sit in my car every day outside the salon, and I would deep breathe, try to, wipe my tears away. I would even watch videos of like funny videos of cats and stuff, just to try to make myself laugh so I could have the strength to get out of my car and walk in the door of my own salon.
I find it's always the person that, has a really good book and they're bringing in the dollars and they know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts, I like to call it a hostage situation. We feel held hostage by that person because they're really great at what they do good work, but they kind of push our back against the wall.
Yes. I think the people who I felt most bullied by in my salon did not have a book at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually made the mistake of hiring, warm bodies with no clientele. So I thought, I'm going to hire all these people and don't worry, if I build it, they will come. Really, I mean, I could write a book about all the mistakes I made in the beginning and the assumptions that I made. But the person, who wasn't a fit, who did have that book, who I relied on a lot, was that manager that I brought in. My bad cop to my good cop, who I felt.
Okay.
And so I actually when my manager gave her notice, because we were not doing well. I mean, things were going awry, as you can expect, based on everything I told you, over hiring. So the budgets weren't great. And everything was just going down the tubes. The dream wasn't really working out the way that we expected it to. My manager decided to jump ship, probably about 3 months into the process of us being open. And I felt devastated and terrified when I got her email. I just sinking feeling in my stomach. I was like, this is it. This is the end. Because in my mind, I had felt like I needed her to do this. And when she gave her notice, I panicked. And another mistake I made was I just said, is it money? Do you just need more money? We didn't have money. That was part of the problem. But I was grasping at straws to try and fix this, because I was so insecure in my own leadership abilities and my confidence that I could do this, that I, basically offered her money I didn't have. I wasn't even taking home any money myself, like most salon owners do in the beginning. But I was doing whatever I could to try to keep her there. And I'm really so grateful that she did end up leaving anyway, because had I done that and just kept her there longer, I would have just built myself deeper and deeper into a hole that would have been harder to get out of. So after my manager left, everybody followed her. And so that was my first walkout. Everyone except for one stylist. And you'll notice that'll become a theme in my story. There's always one left. But one stylist stayed with me, and she gave me the strength to kind of pick myself up, dust myself off, and say, I think I want to try this again and do better next time.
So it was because of her sticking by you that made you, because I found in my last walkout, it was the 3 people that stuck by me that I said, I got to keep going for these people.
Yeah.
Or I probably would have given up. So I understand that.
Yeah. I think a lot of it had to do with each person that stayed by me and believed in me did give me strength to keep going, because I felt like, they're relying on me for livelihood, for a job. They want to be here. Despite everything, their loyalty meant so much that for me, I was like, okay, we can give this a shot. And the whole reason I wanted to have my own salon from the beginning, a big reason, was I didn't want to be behind the chair anymore. My dream was to have something bigger than me, and to teach other people what I knew about hair extensions. And I have a passion for business. And this was my outlet for being able to express myself in a business sense, because I thought, oh my gosh, things were so much easier when I was renting a suite. And I longed for that in those days because it was so hard. But I kept telling myself, if you go back to a suite, you're just going back to where you were. You're not your dream is to have a salon, like this is your chance. You have to keep going. So yeah, God told me to keep going and I did, but I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say the words how to get, you know, in my search history, how to get out of a commercial lease would show up a few times. Like
Like, what do you mean?
Oh, like I was looking actively at certain points in this journey, how to get out of my lease.
Okay.
Because that's how.
And this is 3 months in? You were 3 months into your salon ownership career at this point?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It tanked.
So, of course, what a lot of people who I think walk out think that you were making boatloads of money off of them. And I think you touched on it a little bit. How far into debt were you getting and how little were you paying yourself at that time?
I'm grateful.
Because I'm sure you paid some other people and underpaid yourself.
Absolutely. I decided I wanted to be team-based pay from the very beginning. And so team-based pay entails that you pay people whether they're with a client or not. So imagine opening a salon, paying someone hourly, 5 people with no clientele, and making that commitment right off the bat. And I'm expecting clients to just waltz in the door, and I'm still behind the chair. I'm basically working behind the chair and I'm not getting paid at all. I'm taking nothing home, and my husband and I have put our savings into this, and you know, and my credit card, my little credit card with my $5,000 limit. And that's what I have. Like everything was on the line. I didn't have family or investors or anyone helping me in this. So, you know, I'm grateful that I didn't go really into debt in this process, but I mean, I was taking home barely anything at this point. And I was paying people for whole days to be at the salon where they weren't bringing anything in. And that was really hard. And actually, this is a theme that will show up across all of these walkouts is when things were hard, I hid it. I did not tell anybody. I felt like what people want to see from their leader is just pure strength, and they don't ever want to see you be honest or anxious. So I was hiding it all the time. And I was trying not to let people know how bad it was. And eventually when I couldn't do that anymore, and we had a staff meeting, and I just said like, hey, I'm not getting paid. I'm making nothing, you know, and I start crying because I bottled it up so much. And I felt like I just needed them to know, like, I'm struggling, like I'm giving everything to you. Like, you know, what I was hoping would be accepted as like honesty was
what you get after you did that.
What did I get? I got chewed out.
You did.
Absolutely. I got yelled at. I got cursed at. I was told, that's your problem. That's your fault. If you're not getting paid, guess what? You're the owner, but
figure it out.
And, in a way, when I look back on that, I'm like, that wasn't kind, but I also look back and I'm like, I did not handle that well. That's such a mistake for a salon owner to go in to your team and say, hey, I'm not making any money. The people need to feel secure in where they work. That's so important. It's like security is on the hierarchy of needs of what an employee, a human needs to feel good. Security is like number one. And when your salon owner says, hey, we're not doing well and I'm not getting paid, that completely shatters this illusion of safety, you know, that your team's going to have. And so looking back on that, like I would never go in and say anything remotely like that again. But at the time, it's all I knew how to do. I just felt like I have to say something here because people think that I'm greedy. They think that I'm holding out on them. And I'm like, I just have to say, I'm eating ramen this week again, you know? So yeah, that was hard.
So I think that, you know, there are some networking groups out now for owners. I know I'm part of a couple of them where so many owners are experiencing very similar things. Looking back now, do you think it would have been better to maybe have some mentoring, and people that really could understand being an owner? Because I think that the employees never really do.
No, and they shouldn't. That's the thing. It's
Mhm.
like, you can't expect your employees to be there for you like another salon owner is
Right.
going to be. I think it's completely appropriate to, I'm so blessed now. I have mentors. I have friends like you. I have other friends who aren't salon owners, but have small businesses that I can share the ups and downs with and call.
Mhm.
And I could now, if I had ramen days again, I could call them and say that, and they would be there for me with encouragement, but I would never tell my team that. And
Mhm.
I can say proudly, we're in a great financial place. And you know, those days will never come again, but like it's there. Yes, it's so great. Like I've learned a lot since then,
Mhm.
but I really feel like there's certain things you need to rely on your friends for
Mhm.
and your peers for, and your
Mhm.
stylists and your employees, they're not your peers.
Mhm.
You're their leader. Like, you need
Mhm.
to lead them. It doesn't mean that you need to always smile and always like have a happy face on, even when the ship's sinking. That's not what it is. You need to be honest, but there's a line of like what you share and what is, you know, what sharing the vision and where you're going and how things are doing, and being very clear and kind about it, but not in a way of like basically blaming them if things aren't
Mhm.
going well. And that's
Mhm.
my second walkout lesson, one of the lessons I learned there.
Okay, so you have your first walkout. So
Mhm.
now what happened after that first walkout? You had one person with you. You pull up your bootstraps, you say you're going to go at it again. Take us from that point.
Yes, so I have my one stylist left and we decided to rebuild. I read this book called Leadership Pain, and I feel like it helped me get through that
Okay.
because it basically said, you know, we only grow to the threshold of our pain. And I was like, I'm in a lot of pain right now. This is the worst pain of my life. You know, at 25 years old, I go
Yeah.
out on my first business venture, I fall flat on my face. Like, it could not be worse. And I couldn't, my self-esteem couldn't be lower. So reading that book really helped me realize, like, help me reframe that experience to look at it as like, this is my chance to grow from this. Um, if everything's easy all the time, that's not going to be a great story to tell one day, like I get to tell you now.
Mhm.
I think back then I could kind of see into the future, like, I have to go through these things because it's going to get me where I need to be. If everything's smooth sailing the whole way and I keep my one staff this whole time, I'm not going to get anywhere where I need to be.
Mhm.
So that really helped a lot. And then I think once I decided I'm going to start rebuilding my team, I learned a lot about hiring the first time. So my hiring process improved dramatically. I look back on that crew and they were good people. They were kind people,
Mhm.
motivated, talented stylists, and a lot of them are doing well now. So I did much better with that. I was still at that point doing the whole stoic, hiding my emotions, hiding my feelings, really trying to be a little bit more friends with my team. I was trying to embrace that leadership role. And so I think I was trying to embrace it in more of a like, let me be your friend, you know, kind of way. And there's a balance. There's always a balance, which we learn. But I think that everything really started going wrong when I noticed that we were hemorrhaging clients. Our retention was not doing well.
Okay.
I saw that.
So you started looking at your numbers a little more, because they always say, you know, the numbers tell the story.
Yes. I started looking at the numbers, and the numbers were telling the story of what I was seeing in the salon, which was that we're not very busy. And I started to realize, like, we're losing clients by the bucket full. They're walking out and they're not coming back. So what does this mean? I kind of went into panic mode, and it really all came to a head when I decided I was going to call a staff meeting. I sat everyone down. I handed out probably like a 4-page document to everybody outlining everything that was going to change in our salon. And I changed everything from dress code to behavior to policies, and how we were even going to like get people their coffee. I mean, I look back on that and I'm like, I was a dictator. I basically was handing down a proclamation, and I was in a way blaming them. It came off very much looking back as, hey, we're losing clients. It's your guys' fault. This is how we're going to fix it. And it's decided. And I at no point got their feedback. I at no point, involved them in problem solving and brainstorming ways to keep clients. I didn't even get I got their compliance, but not their buy-in to this plan.
And Jenna, do you think you came down with this dictatorial proclamation, and do you think at any point you didn't care about them, or were you just doing the best you could to try to save the business, not only for you but for them, in the best way you knew you could at that time?
Yeah, I fully believed that I was doing what was best for them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, and that's what I just kept thinking the whole time. I'm doing this for you, because if we don't keep clients, we can't financially keep. I'm going to have to let people go. No one wants to sit around not being busy, staring at each other all day. I was doing it what I felt was in their best interests. Mm-hmm. And I felt like all we needed was to tighten up. But I didn't involve them, but I was doing the best that I could at that time. And I actually got that advice from somebody that I trusted, who was saying, hey, this is what you got to do. You really just got to hammer at home. We got to turn this around. And that's what I felt like I was doing. But again, I was creating, just like the first time, I was creating an unstable, unsafe environment by doing that, and basically saying, hey, we're not doing good, and it's your fault. We need to fix this. That also was creating that illusion of not unsafety, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you're taking the blame for creating an atmosphere that was unsafe, and they weren't secure in their jobs, and you think that's a lot of what caused the walkouts in your situation.
I think in looking at it as best I can from their perspective, and then looking back on feedback I was hearing as people were leaving, that is how they felt. And some people just said, like, hey, I thought we were a team. Where was the team when it came to how do we fix this together? And now looking back, I'm like, I get chills when I think about that, because I'm like, yeah, where was that? I was felt like I had to get into captain of a sinking ship mode, and I had to just start barking orders to fix it. And I just did the best that I could at the time, but I've learned a lot looking back on how they must have felt being put
so now so after that meeting, how long after that was your walkout?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd they go? What'd they say about you? And I can remember like every walkout, like everything kind of is like blurry around me.
Yeah.
Like I'm walking around the salon and I'm taking care of customers, but it's like a big blur.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's trauma. I talked to a therapist in 2020 during the shutdown because I had so much unresolved trauma around my walkouts and that rejection, because that's what it feels like. You feel like you're being personally attacked and rejected when you go through that. So I think that blurriness is actually now your brain trying to protect you. It's almost like you're being shielded from those memories in a way, because it's hard. But it is kind of a blur, but it took a couple months, you know, slowly over time, right around the holiday. I think people had enough care and respect for me to make it through the holiday, make it through Christmas before they decided to leave around that time. And so, yeah, it only took a couple of months, but as far as like what people were saying, it was more my first walkout that people were really saying the meanest things. They were really, you know, cussing me out, being terrible. I do pole fitness, like pole dance fitness. And I had some people even stoop as low to say that I was a whore. But we can laugh about it now because it's ridiculous. But in the moment, you're like, I cannot believe,
horrified.
I cannot believe. I think my lowest moment was actually, I was taking out the trash behind the salon because I was so afraid of my team. I couldn't even ask them to take the trash out. I couldn't ask them to do anything. So I was doing everything myself.
Everything. You start doing more and more and more, right? Like you don't want to ask them because they'll get mad at me and they'll walk out. So you're like,
oh yeah. I terrified of them, terrified.
Yes.
And I was taking the trash out and I was distracted because I was so in my own head that I walked into an open electrical panel door, metal door, and I hit my head and I hit it so hard that I fell to the ground, partially blacked out. And that was I call it my lowest moment because I was low. I was like on the ground with trash laid out behind me, looking up at the ceiling going, God, how did I get here? I've never felt lower in my life, lower in that moment. And that's kind of when I knew like something has to change. So, that was the darkest time. But, you know, in the second walkout, I think they did have more respect for me. They did care about me a little more to try to tell me like why they were leaving. And, but at the time, all I could feel was anger about it. Like, again, I do so much for you. You don't appreciate it. Two of them went in and rented a suite together, and that one hurt because, you know, they tried to kind of keep it a little bit on the hush hush that they were doing that, taking clients with them, you know, all that. And it just hurt really bad. They all decided to go independent. And I kind of thought in that moment, like, this is a no-win situation. Like, who doesn't want to get to do whatever they want and have a suite? I felt very discouraged about the state of the industry at that time. Like I think a lot of salon owners kind of do, like, well, how am I going to keep good people? Everyone just wants to be independent. And I've learned you just have to find the right people who want to be in the culture you're providing. But at the time, it was a very hard, low moment for me with that.
Okay, let's go to number 3.
Okay, I feel like I'm in therapy again.
So you've been through it twice, and how did you decide to go again?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think after the second time, I wanted to quit every time. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you definitely think that.
I know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's almost like every time you almost get angrier and like more resilient in a way.
Mhm.
Like you can either have it beat you down more, or you could say, this time, this time I'm going to get it, right? Like every time you just have to.
I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter.
I'm not
quitting.
a quitter.
You're not going to get me.
Yeah, that's what I told myself. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
a quitter. I'm not a quitter. Like I'm going to do this. This is my dream, you know? And so again, after my second one, I had one left. And again, that person believed in me and was standing beside me. She became my manager. She helped me hire, really came alongside me and was super encouraging during that whole process. I ended up relying on that person a lot in my salon. And I think one of the lessons I learned in my third walkout is I relied on her too much. You know, I kind of relied on her I stepped back away from the training. I wasn't training my team as well as I should have. I wasn't giving them enough individual attention. We hired a lot of people kind of quickly to rebuild. And what I learned is that I hired, again, good people, good crew, but my dream for this salon was to be extension focused. And I was hiring people fresh out of school who didn't know what they want. They didn't know what they wanted yet. And so they thought, oh, extensions sound fun. I think I'd like to do that. Well, they don't know because they haven't even been in the industry. And so they start at Crown and then they're like, wait, I'm only learning extensions. Oh, shoot, I actually want to do color. You know, I want to do balayage. I want to do all this stuff. And so I've had to really refine my hiring. My hiring process is down now to where I know the red flags and I know the type of person who would fit here and do great and would love it. They have to be.
So talk to us about that. Like, how did you get to that point? Because I would see you, you know, doing all these cool, fun things in the schools. And like, who wouldn't want to work for you? I'm like, oh my God, she's so cool. She's so fun. So what did you do to really refine your hiring process? I think that'll be really helpful to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what helped me is I found out I really had to look back on every person who left and really open my heart up enough to accept what they were telling me was the reason that they were moving on, and then read between the lines. And what I discovered was a lot of these fresh face, new talent, great stylists with a lot of potential I was bringing in. They basically thought they were coming into a salon that was extension focused, but they were going to get to do it all. And they were going to get to learn it all. And they were going to get this very long apprenticeship that's going to cover everything A to Z for color. And I don't think at any point I ever told them otherwise. And that was partially on me, right? Like, and so
making it really clear in the beginning.
Yes.
I was always afraid of that because I just wanted bodies.
Yeah.
You know, but now I'm like, I'm getting a lot clearer on what I expect, the kind of person we want, what they're going to get. Yeah, is that what you did?
Different. Yeah, what makes you different and what could potentially turn someone off from you, and say it right away, because that interview is about pre-qualifying, right? And so my salon, we're gratuity free, and we have many wonderful reasons why we are, but that could turn someone off, right?
Yep.
We're team-based, and so they're not commission. They're compensated whether with a client or not. And there's all these wonderful things about being team-based, but some people, that's not for them. So we talk about that. They're expected to work together. Sometimes you're working in close proximity with someone else. You're sewing extensions in right shoulder to shoulder with someone. And so I think that these are things I always have to bring up right away from the beginning. And I say, hey, we do extensions 95% of the time. It can be tedious, but it's fun. And like, so how do you feel about that? And after I say everything that's kind of weird about my salon, I ask, how do you feel about that?
Feel about that.
Right? And I say, like, it's okay if you need to think about it. So, in fact, we have a 2-year educational agreement as well. So basically, I'm looking for your commitment. If I'm putting all this, essentially 10 grand worth of training in extensions, and I say, so I'm looking for a 2-year commitment. How do you feel about that? And so basically, I would encourage salon owners, if there's anything that's a deal breaker or has been a deal breaker in the past, don't be afraid to bring it up in the interview, but be prepared to defend your why of why you are that way. Because I think having a solid foundation of this is who we are and this is who we're looking for is just going to set you up for clarity. If they're not a good fit, it's better to not have them be there at all than to hire a warm body who is not committed.
I think it's really interesting. You said something that I also did a lot of therapeutic work on. And I had to take every person that walked out and really hurt me. And I had to look at them and I had to look at their perspective and I had to find the value in the lesson. And I found it really interesting that you did the same thing. In each of those people, when you're going through it, it's so painful. And I don't even know if those people realize how much work we do to appreciate them and the pain they caused us. How can you talk a little more about that and the value that because it does have value in moving forward?
Yeah, when you said they don't realize how much we appreciate them, that hits home because that was feedback I would get a lot, is I didn't feel appreciated. And I think for me, that was hard to hear because I was like, I do appreciate so much. Like, you don't even know how much I think about you and how much
at night when I can't sleep and I'm like, did I talk to her today? Or did I, I got to show her this thing. And
did I say something that offended her? She didn't seem happy today. Is it me? Can I talk to her tomorrow? When we want the salon to do well, it's not for us. I have always seen my salon as a vehicle to provide jobs to other women and teach them what I knew. And for me, it would break my heart when people would turn on me and say, you don't care about me, or anything along those lines, or you don't appreciate me. And I would just think of all the times I'm like, I feel like I told you all the time that I appreciated it. Or I would even when clients would come in and they would say, oh my gosh, so-and-so did such a good job on my hair. I'd be like, oh my gosh, isn't she the best? We're so lucky to have her. You know what I mean? And I would just gush and try, and I would give bonuses and classes and try so hard to hear things like, I don't feel appreciated. Oh my gosh, that was difficult. But then I had to realize it's like love languages. You might not, how someone feels appreciated to one person might not work for another. So I think that was something that I learned too, was figuring out how does each person want to feel appreciated? What do they need to hear to have that? And so that's the advice I would give. But then just real quick, as far as looking back on each person, it takes time. In my experience, it would take reading something in a book or listening to a podcast and they would say something and you just have that moment of I get now why they felt that way from me. I get how they heard that when I said this and I meant it this way, I get why they said I wasn't good at communicating. It's because I didn't communicate in the way they understood. Or leadership is so hard.
It's so hard. I know.
So hard.
Do you think it's fair that I kind of feel bad for young stylists who, go out and rent a booth or a micro salon, and then they start building a team and the whole boss babe. And I'm like, Oh, no, you have so much to learn because it's an ever growing learning process and you're going to grow way more than you want to.
Way more than you want to. It's so
I almost want to be like, no, don't believe it. Don't believe it.
I think that what upsets me is that I wish people would be more real. And that's why I'm talking to you and I'm talking
Okay.
so openly about this, even though it's like the most painful part of my life, because I need people to know like what it's like. I think that leadership is so difficult. And if we're always looking on social media at the best parts and, the people don't often share their struggles and what they've learned. They only want to share the high points. And so I think it's very easy to look at that and think it's easy and then get out, fall on your face and feel alone because no one else is talking about the walkouts.
And that's what I decided, I think when I first started this journey is really, we were all so embarrassed and so ashamed. But what I realized is it was happening all over and we needed to get our stories out and tell our stories about what was really happening. So with that, go to number 3.
Okay.
What did you learn with number 3?
All right, number 3, I was mad, but I was determined it was going to be different. Twice was enough, but 3 times is the charm, right? So basically I felt like I was really getting it. And I hired a good team, had that one person left, helped me rebuild. Everything was going well. But I did end up getting a little complacent. I felt like, really between walkout number 2 and number 3, COVID. So right after walkout number 2, a couple months later, it was locked down pretty much.
Okay. Now, did your salon get shut down? Did you guys get shut down?
Yeah.
6 weeks. Okay.
Yes, we did. And that was a really great time to regroup and focus on my hiring process and how things I wanted to be different. And I had my one person, we got through it together. I actually kept her on payroll the whole time. And I could do that because I just had one. So I look back, I'm like, that was kind of a blessing. But yes, when we hired the next crew, I hired good people who were great in every way, except for the one way I really needed, which was they need to be passionate about extensions because that was what we did. And so in my new hiring process now, that is a huge focus. It's like, hey, I just need you to know. Now I actually love to hire people who are a little further along in their beauty career because they know what's out there. They've done color corrections, they've done it all. And they know either if they have a little bit of experience with extensions, they know they love it, or they're just looking for, I'm ready to be a specialist and I'm ready to go all in on one thing. And they're not wandering around looking for it because they know.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Also people who are a little older, because I was hiring very young, because I was young when I got in the industry and I just wanted to, gather them all up and, I wanted to give them
like, these are my people.
Yes.
We're all going to love each other. We're all going to be so great.
Yes. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, late 20s to 30s love because they've worked before and they know what's out there and they know like they can appreciate what I'm giving because I give so much. And so I think, and they want that stability. Whereas younger people are a little more risk open. And so they'll be more like, well, I'll go off and booth rent right away. That's fine because I'm still living with mom and dad, or I can do that. Or like, I can be commissioned and that's fine with me. I can have a high week one week and nothing the next, and it's okay. But for what I provide, people who are looking for that very stable work-life balance environment is what I provide, and they like that. So I've just learned over time, like who my people are, who love that. So I relied a lot on this manager. I expected her to pretty much like train everyone. I expected her to run everything. I put a lot on her. And so she felt a little burned out, a little underappreciated, and she ended up leaving as well. I kind of lost people like all along the way. And when I lost her, I was left with one. So what's funny too about that is I actually have an HR company, and they did exit interviews for me. They lost them. And so I didn't get my one from that manager until 2 weeks ago. Isn't that ironic? So it's been now 9 months, I would say, since that happened.
Okay.
And I've rebuilt again. But I only recently got to read that feedback. And when I read it, it was so hard, but it was so good to see that, and to really have my eyes open of like, oh my gosh, this is how they felt, and this is how it was. And really,
what did she say, Jenna?
Oh yeah, so it said a lot. She was incredibly thorough, very, which I appreciated, but it was also
that she could take the time. Yeah,
I did appreciate that she was. It was almost like in that exit interview, I could see that she still cared, because she cared enough to share.
Yeah,
that thoroughly. If someone's truly done, and they don't give a crap about you, they wouldn't even bother. But I had 5 pages of feedback, and it was, so I'm grateful. But some of the things she said were that I got complacent, which I can acknowledge. Like I would even get to the point sometimes where I would still behind the chair, and I would leave my color bowls in the sink for someone else to clean. So you know what I mean? Like, and in my mind, I guess I was thinking like, well, they're not as busy, they have time, I'll let them do it. But it was also coming off as like, well, that's not a servant leader type thing, you know, and stuff along those lines. People felt like they weren't getting the education that they were promised, or felt like they needed to be successful. You know, she felt like the quality of work was declining, because, you know, she felt like even my quality of work behind the chair was declining, just complacency across the board. She didn't feel appreciated. She didn't, there was a lot that was said, and a lot to absorb. And I think when I read that, I, in some ways, was like, I have to keep an open heart, because there's something I can learn from it still. And I have to acknowledge like that's her truth. And so it's someone's truth, you know, it may not be how I meant it, but that's how it was interpreted. And that's half the story. But also it was great to see how far I've come, because in reading some of that feedback, I was like, I can confidently say I don't do that anymore. I can confidently say I've changed my attitude about this. I can confidently say that if I were to call one of my current team members and ask them, hey, how am I doing in this area? The story would be completely different than how she felt. And so in reading that, I'm really happy that that was lost for as long as it was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was actually a God thing, because I wouldn't have been in a good place to hear it at the time.
Yeah.
And it also was good for me now to take what I need to from it, but also leave and see like, wow, I've come so far in a lot of ways.
You know, I think that a lot of us owners struggle with being behind the chair and bringing in the dollars so that everything can get paid, and stepping back to teach. And I still don't know if it's a realistic dream of ours or not, to be able to fully teach and train and give to our staff members. What do you think? I mean, do you think it's ever really going to happen for you, or do you think we just are going to have to learn how to balance it all?
Well, I can say I am now retired from behind the chair as of October.
Nice.
And it is the best decision because, as I said in the beginning, that was my dream. Was to do that. Not that I didn't love hair. It was that I love the business more. And so I'm so blessed now that I get to focus on the business 100% all the time. That made a huge difference because I agree. I look back on that time and all the hats that I was wearing. I couldn't possibly have given what my team wanted me to give them while doing everything that they were doing behind the chair and running the business. And I'm supposed to educate and provide a 3-week comprehensive training program, and I'm supposed to pay my taxes, and I'm supposed to hire the contractors and hire new stylists coming in, vet them, and then start all over again. It is unrealistic. It is totally unrealistic. I believe every salon owner, if you insist that you must work behind the chair, I would say get out as fast as you can, if you can, first of all. And then, but at least scale back and give yourself the time to really focus on those things that you need to do, because what the modern workforce is looking for is like, they need that love and education, that one-on-one time. They need that from you to feel competent in their
so job. How did you make that break, and how did you feel safe enough to be able to do that? Because we know that in our walkouts, they take the clients with them. So how did you get to the point where you felt safe enough? What was it that you could step away?
I think what helped me was just after my second walkout, I was on my way prior to my third, I was on my way out. I was cutting my time back. Yeah. I was making steps towards doing that. After that, I had to not only go back full time, but we had to add a day. So it was intense time behind the chair. But in my mind, it was that anger again of like, I was so close. I was on my way. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it. And so I determined that I set a date. I put it on the calendar. I'm going to be done by this date. And I'm going to cut back a day this month. I'm going to cut back a day this month. It's happening. And I put it all on the calendar. I blocked my schedule off to make it happen. And so it's like, when you just decide, you have to just decide. You can't just keep going back and forth and be like, oh, this client, she really loves me. That you have to at some point put the trust in your team and just trust that it is going to work out. And so because I was stepping back from behind the chair, guess what I was able to do? Invest in my team. And so because I was investing in my team, I built the confidence in them to take those clients on. And now I can say that one person who stuck by me, Lindy, she is my new manager. And she's out from behind the chair now so that she can focus full time on like managing the salon, being operations, investing in the team, things like that. So it's basically, you just have to decide and then make it happen. I think when you're in a team-based environment, it can be easier because everybody works together with the guests. So that does help, but yeah.
I think we need to talk about some of the things that are really incredible about you, because we've talked about all the responsibility you've taken and the mistakes that you've made, but there's some really awesome things about Jenna. And I always have to tell my team, when I'm writing their bio, I'm like, I want you to be so braggy about yourself right now because people need to know. So what's so awesome about Jenna and some of the amazing things you've done over these years? Now that you've told us all the bad things, tell us a few good ones.
I don't give up. I'm resilient. I have a lot of grit. And I'm really proud of that, because up until all this part of my story, I always say I never really went through anything that hard.
Right.
You don't really know what you have in you until you have to go through it. And so having been through it, I can say I've grown so much as a person. I'm really proud to say that I'm someone who learns from my mistakes. It can seem like I repeat them because I've had 3 walkouts, right? But I don't see it that way because each one taught me something so different. And I can look back and be like, I'm grateful for that, because team number 1, I wouldn't be where I am. Team number 2, I wouldn't be where I am. Team number 3, like, you have to learn who you are and what your business needs to be. And you learn that through every turnover.
You learn so much
so much about yourself,
so much
about what you want, about, you know, your goals and who you need to align yourself with. And I'm gosh, I could just go on and on about how great my team is now. Like, I found my people who align with the vision, and they love each other. The energy is so good. I walk in there now, and I'm not there very much anymore, but when I come in, like, the clients will stop me and be like, I just have to say, I just love the people here. Like, the energy is so good. Everyone's laughing. They remember what we talked about last time. They asked me about how my dog's doing. Like, I feel like a queen. I just, like, I could cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have what I wanted. I always wanted. I have the best manager who, like, supports me in every wacky, weird thing I want to try. You know,
because you're crazy fun. Like, you are crazy fun. If I lived in Colorado, that is where I would work.
Thank you.
Like, I want to work there. So again, you talked about how great your team is, and I can see, like, how grateful you are, but there's some amazing things about you. Let's talk about your new commercial building. I mean, you had a podcast that you sold. Like, you're a competitive bodybuilder now. I mean, you are hardcore, girl.
Thank you. I'm a Enneagram 3. I'm an achiever. I cannot help but just look for the what's next. I get so excited about the future that I want to bring it here now. And so, very goal oriented. I see myself as a visionary. It's what my dream is really with Crown is to franchise. So that's a huge dream. I don't think that most salon owners, like, think long-term, like, oh, I want to franchise my business. But for me, I treat my business now like it already is a franchise. And so because I treat it that way, it's growing in that way. And so I bought a building during the pandemic. We're about to begin renovations. And so hopefully by the end of this year, it'll be our new dream salon. I did do competitive bodybuilding last year. Did my first bikini competition, and that really taught me a lot about myself and discipline. So I can now say,
I think we're gonna have to say that again.
I can now say I'm a disciplined person as well as a resilient person.
We're gonna have to get our editor to put in a picture of you. I think you, like, made a magazine cover.
Oh, no, I did not. But
you didn't. But so there's an amazing picture of you competing. We have to, like, show our listeners that, because when I saw that, I was so proud of you, like, in so many ways, because over the years I would get that message from you, and you'd be like, hey girl, it just happened again. And I was like, no, what do you need? What do you need? How can I help? And it was just like, I felt like a mom. Like, she got it. She got through it. She's taking care of herself. She's becoming her best self. And I'm just so proud of you. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you, Alayne. Oh my gosh. Thanks for being there for me. You and other people like you are who get me through those hard times. Just hearing you're not alone. Honestly, hearing your story about what you've been through and other salon owners, like, we've all been through it. It's crazy how many similar.
But we never knew that.
And we never knew
were going
to
through this.
talk. And so
Right.
I think that's why I was so excited to talk, because I'm like, I'm in a place now where I can, and I have to. Like, there's other people have to know, like, they're not alone in this, and we're all just learning. It's easy to say, like, I'm the worst, I'm terrible, I should just give up. You know, like, I want to do so many times, but you have to know, like, we all make mistakes, and hearing about how other people fall down their face and get back up is the only way that you feel encouraged enough to do it yourself, right? So
my whole goal with Stop the Walkouts is kind of twofold, is just to know that we're all going through this and we can help each other. But the second phase of it is, how do we help people in our industry be kinder and better to each other? Because we all are learning and growing and becoming better versions of ourselves and evolving. And the more kindness we can give to each other, the better we're all going to be. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned through all of this, is every single owner I've spoken with has taught me something and has the best heart. So we've talked a lot about your struggles. We've talked a lot about your successes. To wrap this up, what do you want to give back, and how do you want people to remember you?
I think going back to what you said, yeah, we have to be kinder to each other, but we have to be kind to ourselves. That's huge. I think what helped me grow through this, because I could very easily be bitter, and I could be very easily that person working in a suite, complaining about how I tried to open a salon and it didn't work out. I had several opportunities to go back to that. And
I think we all thought that many times after every walkout, right? We're like, that's it, we're done.
I could be there, but I'm not. I'm here having meetings with an architect, designing my dream salon, you know? And I'm so blessed. But I think that what got me here was just, you had to be kind to myself. I had to, doing the bodybuilding show was really an exercise in selfishness in a good way. It was all for me. Bodybuilding is a perfect way to express, like, self-care in the ultimate form. Eating healthy, working out, taking care of yourself. I think I had lost myself a lot. When you own a business, it consumes you.
Yeah.
Doing that for myself was so important. Getting therapy, talking to people, you know, and taking vacations, being nice, and getting out from behind the chair. These are all exercises in self-care. Hard self-care, but necessary. And so, yeah, I think being kind to yourself when that happens, taking what you need and leaving what you don't, and moving forward, like, that's
like, take that time, just do it. You know, owners who are in it, and you know, it can consume you, like you said. Just, you think it's really important to take that time to take care of yourself. We're actually allowed.
Yeah. It's non-negotiable. You can't. When I had my podcast, one of the questions I always asked was, you know, how do you feel about taking time for yourself, to care for yourself? And people would always say something along the lines of, I've learned you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give your staff what they need if you don't have it. And you can't, you know, take care of your guests, and you can't build your dream if you are so empty yourself. You have to be willing to do that. And I think most salon owners that I know are our intention in opening a salon was not to make a lot of money. It wasn't to, you know, like, have this monument to our own vanity. all these things that sometimes we get accused of, especially in the middle of a walkout. It's always to give back. That's the whole reason 9 times out of 10 someone opens a salon. And it's that like pure intention that you have to go back to. You, and we're caring people, so we have to care for ourselves just as much as we care for others. So yeah,
that's a great thing to end with. I think we just, all of us in this business, like, we get our goodies making other people feel good. We're very close to nurses in caring and nurturing. So with that being said, give us your biggest piece of advice, looking back on your journey and all that you've been through. If you could give us your number one thing that you've learned, what would that be?
Get a therapist. Honestly, like, you have to process every time something like this happens. We always think, I gotta just push through. I just gotta keep going. And you do, but you also have to care for yourself, and you really have to process it fully. And it's not fair to yourself to live with anxiety. I can gladly say, when I'm driving to the salon anymore, I don't want to cry. I don't feel that. I used to have chest pains. Don't have that anymore. I'm excited to go to my salon and walk in and be greeted by everybody. And the energy is positive. And like, hold on to that dream of what it could be, and just pivot every time. Like, every time something like this happens and you have a setback, you just have to stop and take the lesson, forgive yourself, and try again.
Beautiful. That was beautiful, Jen. Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you? Who are some of your mentors? Just give a shout out to yourself and the people that helped you along the way, if anyone else is looking for support.
Yeah, you could just email me if you want to talk to me directly. It's jenna@crown.salon. My Instagram is jenna.ceo. Stands for Chief Extension Officer.
Nice.
And that would be great. I would say big mentors. A really great mentor for me right now is my coach, Rodney Enos. She of Salon Cadence. So she's been very helpful. She's been by my side for me when I've gone through hard things. She came alongside me, around the time of my 3rd walkout, and helped me through that process of rebuilding stronger. So I just want to give a shout out to her.
Great. Thank you for being here, and I hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did, and I look so forward to just continue watching you flourish.
Oh, thank you, Alayne. I really appreciate you.
Bye, Jen.
Bye.